Yeah, so I found a game theory video, which I think was only like 30 minutes, so I opted for the one that's an hour and 21 to get the full rundown. And this is from Sheep Rampage. The video link will be in the description of this live stream and the video version when this comes out if you're watching the video version. I've watched a few of his vids, trying not to get too spoilers because I just finished chapter 4, but really good videos. Check out Sheep Rampage for sure. He's gonna be my go-to Poppy Playtime guy now, based on the videos I've seen. But now we gotta go through this lore too, because I played all 4 chapters, and I should note that this video is probably this might come out before I've completed the 4 chapters or after. I'm not sure which I'll end up uploading, but I have beaten the 4 chapters as of watching this. But like I said, the video might come out later, or I mean, it might come out earlier. So if you see the videos of me going through the chapters, it actually is my first reactions to the chapters. This is just happening afterward. So this should be interesting to me as well, because I played the 4 chapters and I feel like I know a lot, but I'm also ready to get my mind blown with a lot that I don't know, because there's definitely still some questions, mainly about Elliot Ludwig and I mean William Afton. Let me know, chat, if y'all want me to turn it up.
Most complex stories out there, with hours of lore spanning across games, spin-offs, books, ARGs, and more. But today, I've put every single piece of the story we have gotten so far.
Should we turn it up? How much?
To create my complete Poppy Playtime timeline.
My complete Poppy Playtime
Disclaimer:
timeline.
This timeline is my opinion of the Poppy Playtime story based on all the lore we've gotten so far. But I hope you guys.
Let me know if you want me to move my
video.
camera as well. If I should go in the corner or something.
Our tale starts in the year 1930 with a man named Elliot Ludwig.
That's what I'm saying,
was
bro.
Your average,
Elliot.
everyday family man with a wife and a daughter living a happy life.
That's what I'm asking
Elliot,
about.
an inventor at heart, obsessed with creating things, had an idea. He wanted to create his very own toy factory that would produce and provide toys for millions of children around the world, leading to him founding Playtime Co. Where from here, Elliot went to work, spending hours upon hours working at the factory, trying to start up the brand and get it on its feet. But while trying to serve families around the world, he started to forget his own. Not being able to be at home
Got
as
too
much
busy with
his
that
wife
work
and
life,
daughter
huh?
due to the long, grueling hours the factory demanded, often leaving
This
his
is
house
giving
during
FNAF
early hours of
vibes
the
for
morning
sure.
and returning at
Already.
late hours in the night, being seen
game
as
as a whole
creepy by
does.
his neighbors even.
I remember
soon
this,
enough,
the
his
recording.
wife could no longer take it, packing up and leaving him and his daughter during his most trying times.
Damn. 1950s. We
Lock
just
in
went ahead
for
20 years and got an
every year
AT&T
for the
ad.
next-
We just went ahead 20. That 20 years is a long time. What happened in 20 years? Elliot Ludwig, if he was 30, bro, he's 50 now.
Elliot Ludwig had spent the last 2 decades trying to create products to no real avail. Nothing really seemed to stick with the public. That is until the year 1950.
Wait, okay, explain this to me though. Explain this to me. Nothing was sticking for 20 years? How did they stay open? No ideas, no toys stuck. They were open 20 years. Okay.
The
There's
product that
Poppy.
would change his entire life. Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime was a baby doll toy, which was a super common thing in the 1950s, but Elliot's was extra special because she, unlike the rest, could seemingly talk back and forth with children, making her feel almost lifelike.
I'm a real girl.
I don't know why that's an appeal.
Along with her hair being scented like poppy flowers.
Kids already think
a
they're real
soothing
anyways.
scent that would calm down the children that played with it. This
Oh,
release
what?
would explode the company and was extremely
calms
successful,
down
finally
like a
giving
scent?
Elliot everything he ever wanted. His toys were now quickly in the hands of millions of children, and now that his company was growing, he was able to hire new employees, with the first notable one being Thomas Clark, hired in 1955, while also creating the Grab Pack at some point, a backpack with retractable
I use
hands
that
at the
thing,
sides
chat.
that employees could use to reach faraway items at ease. to
We all
help
used
with
that thing,
efficiency.
didn't we?
And furthermore, Elliot used his success to start doing factory tours, allowing families to visit the factory and see how everything
Hey,
is
but
being
I wonder
created,
how
expanding-
$5.99 was in 1950. Let me look this up, because I thought $5.99 is cheap, right? But like it's 1950, right? So let's see. I'm just gonna say, was $6 cheap in 1950 or expensive? I should have just said expensive. $6 in 1950 is equivalent to purchasing about $80 today. Damn. Okay, that was an expensive doll then, I guess. Lambo Racer says, I bought V-Bucks and glitched, so I restarted game because I want the new Simpsons and Sidekick. Bro, now my game is glitched. What does this have to do with, what does this have to do with the Poppy Playtime lore, bro?
Growth and brand more, along with working on new products like the Doughy,
Doughy,
a Play-Doh type toy led by the mascot Doughy the Doughman. That was another massive
Frosty the Snowman ripoff.
Company more. Although, despite all of this success,
should we do subtitles,
at some
Chad?
point during this period, Elliot Ludwig's daughter would tragically pass away. And just like that, Elliot's family that inspired him to provide toys for millions of others was now gone, putting him into a deep depression. However,
again,
Elliot
FNAF
wasn't
vibes.
just going to stop there. If the factory is
Child
what
dying.
dragged his family away, then maybe it's what could bring it back together. He had thousands of these lifelike Poppy dolls laying around, so being an inventor, he wondered if he could use one of them as a new shell for his daughter and attempt to revive her himself.
Is that a reasonable
It was a Hail Mary, to say the least, but it was worth a try.
Reaction
and
to
after
death?
experimenting on her
Denial,
with the slim
yeah.
but non-zero chance to save her life, magically it worked. Perfectly, as a matter of fact. His daughter was back as a living and breathing Poppy
So Elliot
doll.
Ludwig's
She could
daughter
move,
is
think,
Poppy.
talk, and feel. Elliot's daughter was revived, but this
Ooh,
situation
I didn't know
scarred him
that.
deeply as he realized he hadn't been spending any time with his daughter he almost just lost while
I
working
didn't know that.
24/7. So instead, he would develop
Okay, wait.
himself
So now
a
theory. I'm sure this isn't like my own theories. Like Elliot Ludwig somehow the prototype, because chapter 4 and what we've gotten from chapter 5 kind of gives the vibe that the prototype wants more than just killing and stealing toys. It kind of wants to be with Poppy. Maybe it's
new
him,
home
you know?
inside of the factory
adjust
where
the
they both live,
subtitle
right
sizes?
across from his office, allowing him to
Subtitles.
spend more time with her during the
Options.
busy hours and still have that
Font
semblance
size.
of the family life he lost when
50%?
originally starting the company.
75.
With 12 grams of
God
protein
damn
per
it!
serving.
They're two different things.
Playtime Co. was doing better than ever, riding off of Poppy Playtime's success, and naturally, Elliot Ludwig expanded the company further by creating the
Ludwig.
Make a Friend machine in 1960,
Okay.
which was an interactive machine used
Okay,
for
I'm sorry. I'm not focusing. I need to adjust these subtitles, chat. I'm sorry. I'll do 75.
tours where children could create another new toy,
Oh, the Make a Toy
Happy,
machine.
along with
We did
more
that.
new products like Bron the Dinosaur in 1961 and Boxy Boo in 1966, presumably
Boxy Boo
along with
ate
many
somebody.
other
Oh,
undated toys to keep
Pianosaurus!
expanding the company's growth. But Elliot, again, was still a
Bro got
family
cooked.
man and wanted to help even more children around the
they
world
got a Huggy
outside of
shirt.
just giving them toys. And at an unknown point during this success, he would create the Young Geniuses program, a program where many gifted children around the world would be hand-selected by Elliot Ludwig after applying to come to the Playtime Co. factory and actually learn how the toys are produced through their factories and innovation
Was
labs,
Jack
with
one
the
of
hope
them
that eventually when they grow
that
up,
fell in the
they
vat
would take over
in
the
chapter
company
4?
as Elliot and his many colleagues aged away. Many children would be selected for this program, like Bruno White, who will be important later, but the most special one of them
Do not
all
remember
was
that
a
name.
boy named Harley Sawyer, an intentionally
That's the
isolated child
doctor,
with no
guys.
interest for friendships or cares for others, with a rough life back at home, but despite this was an extremely intelligent and focused mind, obsessed with the scientific process. When selected for the Young Geniuses program, he saw how dedicated Elliot Ludwig and Playtime Co. was for innovation, which enlightened him further, giving him purpose and determination he never had before. Joining the program and getting to work on these creations with Elliot finally made the troubled young boy
He's a
happy.
child.
However, there was
already getting
a big
hired?
looming issue. While Harley cared a ton about progress and innovation, his isolation and lack of friendships had turned him into a cynic. He didn't care about trying to make the children happy or benefiting humanity.
that's
he just
called
wanted
a
to see how far
sociopath.
he could go with his creations, which went completely
Unfortunately.
against Elliot Ludwig's ethics, causing them to argue against each other, where after a little while, despite him being one of the smartest children in the entire program, he unfortunately was removed removed by
Ooh.
Elliot. Harley, following this,
Ooh.
was enraged.
I didn't know
believing
Elliot Ludwig was a part of
a
it this much.
backstabber after inviting him in the first place,
I just
just
remember
to
him from
get
the
rid of
beginning.
him. But for now, he was gone.
Ooh, 1970. We're skipping through
In
so many years.
1972,
Guys,
Elliot would sign.
like how old is Elliot at this point? He started this toy factory 40 years ago. Is he okay? Like, we're skipping through decades like they don't matter at all now. I don't know, man. This is
With
crazy.
the company Warren
time
Bach
skips the
Construction
craziest
to
thing so
build
far.
new areas of the factory.
Playcare.
For instance, a theater where toy visitors could watch shows acted and based on
Oh, yeah,
the
the
Playtime Co.
theater
characters, with one of the main
was
mascots of the
in
area being Boxy
Project
Boo,
Playcare,
among
right?
many other sectors of Playtime,
Playtime
Co.
or
However,
whatever.
a
Project
few years
Playtime.
later, in 1976, after decades of company growth,
Hey,
Elliot
by the
wanted
way,
to do
guys, I'm
something
sorry I am gonna talk over him sometimes, but it's an hour and 21-minute video. I can't pause every single time I need to say something, so I am gonna talk over him a little bit, but
even
I hope that
bigger
doesn't get
to
annoying.
further his vision of
but
helping and providing enjoyment
if I
to
paused every
children
time, this
around
video
the
would be
world.
4
He had
hours.
brought toys and opportunities to millions of families, but he also wanted to help the
Damn.
many others without families.
That kid's got
leading
aura.
to him creating the Playtime Co. Orphanage Program.
Yeah, I remember that
program
poster.
ran by Elliot that specialized in providing homes and love to millions of children who were orphaned with no parents. And in order to house all these children, he would have Warren Bach build Playcare, their in-house orphanage, where after a tram ride into a dome, they were met with a city-like structure with homes, schools, counselors' offices, play areas, and a store full of toys. It was everything a child would ever want while waiting to be adopted. Around this time, more toys were also created, like Yarnaby, who was a part of a wildlife conservation campaign to save animals,
alert,
and
I hate
Candy
that
Cat, a gumball machine and
Candy
dispenser.
Cat scared the hell out of
However,
me as
deep
well.
within the background of this success, while all of this was going
hate
on,
Yarnaby,
Elliot
though.
Ludwig began to
Hate
wonder about how he was able to create
Called
such
it
a
an
perfect doll in Poppy Playtime decades past, and if he could reproduce
Her
the
eyes I
results
also hate.
again.
They've
Since
always
if he could
scared
figure
me.
out the secret to literal resurrection, he can not only entertain children, he could save their lives in the same way he did his daughter. The only thing he really knew about her was that she was a doll scented like poppies. So he began to experiment, creating a poppy gel formula to attempt to resurrect other small animals like rats, things that were ultimately
Wait. The Chapter 5 teaser just came out. And that was looking like Poppy Gel. Now I know what Poppy Gel is. I need to learn more about it. Let's let him talk. But the Chapter 5 teaser just came out yesterday, as of recording this.
unsuccessful, but gave him promise to keep working while also hiring
trying to
other
get the
new
Golden
employees
Freddy's
like
hard.
Stella Graber to manage
so-
Playcare,
Stella!
Eddie Ritterman, the head of research, Leif
Ritterman!
Pierre, the head of
Leif
innovation,
Pierre!
and Jimmy Roth,
All
the
their
head of
names are in
marketing,
Chapter
to
2
expand
slides. I was
the
paying
toy
attention
side
to
of the
that.
company further.
Oh my god. Oh my
Crack
god, it's
windshield.
Safe Light. No, but
Get it
Stella
fixed
is
now and
always
pay
the
later
one
at
like
safelight.com.
being the rational, nice one
Since you're
in the
already playing
recordings.
games
I don't
anyway,
need these
why not
many
earn some free rewards while
Valorant
you're at it?
ads. I
All
get
you
so
need
many
to do
Valorant
is
ads,
download
guys.
Buff.
Get that out of here.
In the early 1980s, Playtime Co. was still large, but it
1980s,
needed
10 more
another
years.
big product to keep their name in the spotlight. They had created a ton of new toys to fill up the company's successful lineup, but it
True.
wasn't until the year 1984 when they would come up with the company's biggest life-changing idea yet.
Is it
Huggy Wuggy.
They didn't come up with
A
them until
furry stuffed animal
1984?
toy that was extremely cute, equipped with Velcro hands that stuck
don't know
together,
about
as
extremely
their market
cute.
research showed anxious children were calmed by a toy that could hug them back. They would release this toy to an absolute smashing success, becoming immediately the biggest toy Playtime Co. had ever produced, taking the place as the unofficial mascot of the entire company. Then in 1985, they would expand on this success even more by creating a female counterpart
Really?
to Huggy, this time who was pink and had eyelashes.
Did people
Kissy
even
and
care that
Missy.
much, though?
Along with even smaller, more affordable Huggy Wuggies, the Mini Huggies. These toys
Right.
50 years after Playtime Co.'s
The mini
opening,
Huggies are actually
skyrocketed
creepy
the
when they
company
chase
into
you.
the biggest it's ever been, and at this point, it seemed like Playtime Co. would never fail. However, an issue that quickly arose was Elliot Ludwig's age.
Yeah,
Elliot had
let's
been working
bring
on
this
the
up.
factory for the entire 50-year history, and
Yeah.
as time began to pass, he started to give more and more power to one of the employees he hired during his time,
Is it Leith?
Pierre, the head
Yeah.
of innovation.
Yeah,
An
yeah,
arrogant and somewhat greedy businessman known to overwork his employees and threaten to
He
fire
seems like
them
a
if
jerk.
they didn't do a good job, but was otherwise actually very well liked by Elliot, as he made it a key point to stay true to Elliot's vision as he took on more roles at Playtime Co., culminating in the late 1980s, where Elliot Ludwig would finally pass away,
Oh.
leaving Leith Pierre to
Oh, but
take
he
full
didn't, though. He's the
control of
prototype.
the company. Upon exploring what Elliot had left
He's the
behind, he
prototype.
was shocked to see that behind closed doors there was Poppy, the real living and breathing Poppy, something nobody had ever seen.
Elliot
in the
never talked
factory
about
before.
this, bro?
While over in his office, the documents of him trying to use Poppy gel to revive rats were found. These things Leith and his team began to study, but over on the toy side, he had also left one more thing: plans for the Smiling Critters.
I hate these
a
guys.
set of 8 different Care Bear
I hate 'em.
inspired plushes.
It's one
all
in
with their very own
32,000.
personalities, led by
Damn.
Dog Day, and included others like Bobby Bear Hug and
Bear
Hobby
Hug.
Hopscotch that would be sold as
I love the
plushes
button
and would
press
spit
things
out
that they have
their
throughout the
own
game.
unique sense
They're
based
great.
upon their
They weren't in chapter 4
personalities.
that good,
like
though.
Bobby, who is a character focused on love, emitting a
Pianosaurus
rose
one?
scent, for instance. This was Playtime Co.'s
Okay,
most
yeah, that's right.
ambitious toy line yet, off the back of the recent Huggy success.
I wouldn't love a
And
toy that
Leith,
emits
being
things,
the
though,
businessman he
personally.
was, loved this idea and sank absolutely all the money he could into the line, creating tons of the plushies to sell and even producing an entire cartoon to
they had to
build
call
the brand
back
further.
Catnap.
But he also had one more trick under his sleeve, specifically with the last smiling critter, Catnap,
He's
who
so
was the
creepy,
critter
bro.
all about getting enough sleep, with his plush scent originally being lavender. However, after seeing what Elliot was doing with all the Poppy Playtime flower stuff and the success of her Poppy scent as a toy back in 1950, Leith and his team would instead create a new gas for Catnap.
Don't know why they
this time
decided
made
to
from
do
the
this, bro.
poppy flowers, being a dark, thick red that, when administered and tested, had extremely
Welcome back,
strong
Co-Fundable.
sleeping properties, knocking people out completely like how Catnap would in the show, while also having notable adverse effects
Violent
like night
nightmares.
terrors and nightmares. Regardless, during production, employees noticed the red smoke coming from the plushes, but chose to send them out anyway, leading up to 1989, where the plushes and the cartoon would finally release, where things went horribly. The show itself was very unpopular.
This is what I
Children
said
were
too.
extremely
I
scared
said
of
this is the point
Catnap,
where
who
it
was
went bad.
completely silent and spewed the intimidating gas to the critters in a terrifyingly uncanny way, making the show almost immediately a failure. But perhaps most horrifying of
Oh,
all
damn, nobody
was
cared
the
about the show
plushes
now?
themselves, specifically Catnap's. As after the plushes went out to stores, Playtime Co. would instantly fall under extreme controversy. Children began to have horrifying nightmares after getting the Catnap plush and inhaling said red gas, as news
That's
articles and
crazy.
television urged parents to not let their children near the Catnap
A
plush
freaking
or
gas
any of these smiling
that can
critters for
give
that
you
matter,
specific
destroying the
nightmares.
company's entire reputation overnight. Playtime Co. eventually ended up recalling the Catnap plush completely,
Like, they
while
could use
trying
that
to
in a
save
lot
the
of
rest of the
ways.
line and creating new alternate lines like the Nightmare Critters. But it
Nightmare
was no
Critters?
use. Nobody wanted to step anywhere
that
near
black
the
sheep
critters
that chased me,
anymore.
bro?
And just like that, with the snap of a finger, the factory Elliot Ludwig had produced was now
So
in
they realized their Catnap was giving people nightmares, and they decided to release a line of critters called Nightmare Critters. Why did they think that was a good idea? What was that about? It was right there. Why? It was right there, bro.
a major
to
depression.
those watching the video, Mr.
millions
Nugget's
of
playing
dollars invested were
FNAF
wasted.
right
The
now.
Smiling Critters were a failure, and the company seemed like it was on a one-way spiral out of existence.
1990s.
Staying
Okay,
connected matters.
AT&T. You know what?
Hey, mama.
At least we're supporting
Remember
with
when you
these
taught me how
ads,
to
right?
fish?
But these are interrupting our flow. We've gotten like
With
3 or
Playtime
4,
Co.'s
bro.
reputation being destroyed by the catnap disaster, Leith Pierre was getting desperate. He was
Don't
running
like you,
low
Leith.
on funds, and if nothing changed soon, Playtime Co. was going to go down in flames quickly. His only real hope left was Poppy and the red gel. If he could figure out how these things worked and could create real living toys just like Elliot, the company would have no competition. They'd have the best toys on the market by far. The only issue is he didn't know how they worked. And in an act of desperation, he needed some help and would turn over to Elliot's Young Geniuses
Hartley
program from a few
Sawyer.
decades back,
Okay.
hiring an
Why would you look
investigator,
there,
Jared
though?
Lockhart, to track down all of the old applicants and list out what they've done as they aged, where one above them all seemed to stick out among the rest. Dr. Harley Sawyer,
Oh, I
who
said
had,
Hartley?
since his
My
days
bad,
at Playtime
Harley.
Co., became
Harley.
a
My bad, Harley.
neuroscientist with
My bad.
years of experience under his belt. And while he was originally kicked by Elliot Ludwig for his lack of morals, with no real other options, Leith brought him back, sending a letter bringing him onto the team on January 15th.
Look at that money driving them.
Where when doing
All these
so,
stories
Harley
have
went
money
to work,
driving
trying to
people
figure
to
out
do
how
these
the
bad
Poppy
things.
doll's life worked by taking the toy apart piece by piece to find that inside were real life human remains. Knowing it was then possible to create a living toy out of an organism, Sawyer then kept studying the Poppy doll while creating a few small experiments of
this
his own
video
to
from?
try and
An
recreate
extra
the
tape?
success. But it was when reading back on Elliot's rat experiment when Sawyer saw it notably cited that while rats were unsuccessful, larger test subjects might reveal better results. But then,
like a
where was
Huggy
he
Wuggy?
going to get a
Or a
larger
person?
body to experiment on? Well, conveniently, Elliot had recently perished and had an available and capable body open for testing.
Oh,
After all,
what?
it's not like he had a family that would notice where his body went. So Harley took out some of his bones and other parts and mixed it with various different metals found throughout the factory
We
to
just jumped
again
between
try
so
and
many
recreate
things.
life.
Chance.
And behold, upon doing this, it was seemingly a success.
Am I
He
right?
had created a quad robotic creature that was living, breathing, and moving.
Is
Named
Elliot the
Experiment
prototype?
1006 to
Oh my God, I
continue off
swear
the
I didn't
numbers
know
of
that,
Elliot
Chad.
Ludwig, also known
just
as
guessing with his
the
connection to
prototype,
Poppy.
Harley's first test
And if
at
Poppy was his
creating a
daughter.
life. The prototype was very interesting because while at his core he was just a bunch of random parts strapped together, he was extremely intelligent, just like Elliot, almost too intelligent, seemingly retaining the smart and inventor-like qualities of his original body, but morally was
Again, FNAF.
completely different, being
Spring Lake.
extremely
Spring Trap,
violent
I mean,
towards
not
the
Spring Lake, I
employees
was
that
thinking
tried
of
to
the
contain
Fortnite.
him, even
Spring
using
Lake.
his inventor skills to craft a
Spring
laser
Trap.
pointer from an alarm clock in his cell and destroy the camera watching it on his chamber,
I
where when
remember
an
this
employee
tape.
would enter to check up on
remember
him,
that.
he would kill
Okay, I'm out.
him.
FNAF is gonna make me go insane.
Seemingly
PD, have a good day or
disassembled
night.
the
Bye,
digital
Chad.
alarm
Bye.
clock within
Bye,
his room
Dina.
and utilized the battery along with several other components to create a laser
think
pointer,
this is
which he then
Lee's
fired
voice,
into
right?
the security camera, disabling it. Once function returned to the camera, the room appeared to be empty. One surveillance specialist went in to confirm his absence. However, the prototype had hidden in one of the camera's blind spots. One casualty occurred.
Otherwise, the creation, despite being
always
living
weird the
and
way he says
breathing,
that one
didn't need to
casualty
eat or
occurred.
anything to survive.
Somebody got
which
freaking
was a
murdered.
plus. And he also couldn't speak,
By a
but
dead
had the
person,
ability
Claw.
to mimic other people's voices, listening in on the many
pretty
conversations
creepy.
around the factory, collecting data. So overall, the prototype was
That he
a
can mimic
success,
voices.
but he was extremely dangerous. Employees advised Harley Sawyer to destroy the creation. However, he refused as he found his intelligence to be extraordinary and worth
Yeah.
studying.
See
So
that?
he would keep him around for now. But another problem still faced. Harley had no more capable bodies to experiment on.
Yeah, so
and
many
needed
of
to
these
find
things where it's man versus nature or whatever, and it goes wrong is when the scientists, like, I get it, or it's just it's where they have to keep going in the name of science. In the name of science, we have to figure this out. We have to expand this. We have to show this to the world, and then they go too far normally. So it's definitely a bit of a cliche, a bit of a trope, but I get it.
use for these
I get it.
experiments fast for Leith Pierre, or face the company shutting down and losing the job he had been wanting since a young boy. Conveniently for Harley, though, Elliot had spent his time building up an entire orphanage below the factory, filled with children that had no families to account for them and check up on them if something were to happen. Plus, he also had this red smoke technology created by Leith that could be used to control when they were awake and when they were asleep, like their very own personal anesthesia. This led to Harley experimenting on some of the children and tried shoving them into the shells of Leith's iconic toys to try and make something valuable for Leith and the business to sell, but was met with failure after failure after failure.
So
Some instances, including Experiment 1015, who showed minor brain activity but otherwise didn't work in the slightest, or a little while later, Experiment 1026, who survived for 45 minutes and held promise, being able to look at whoever was talking to them and even track down an employee's index finger when prompted, but otherwise was also unsuccessful.
So how'd like the first one prototype
what
work?
he did with the prototype into the shell of an actual toy like Elliot did, only being able to create experiments that would live for a few seconds and die off in their small toy bodies. It was not working. But then he chose to try something life-changing. What if instead of trying to cram a human body into a small toy-sized creature, he chose to make the toys themselves larger, human-sized toys? This would solve everything, as Harley would no longer need to fit all of the parts into a tiny toy-sized body, and it could still
but then how does that apply to the smiling critters?
Because
those are alive too.
Worry about
Those are small.
hiring and paying employees, or even about factory lawsuits, since he could instead replace all of the employees with these larger, stronger toys that could also be used as a selling point for Playtime Go's famous tours. To pitch this idea, he would work on Experiment 1160, a
my reaction to Hour of Joy, I think, was crazy. I had trouble sleeping that night, no joke.
A massive success.
Aquaphor takes care of lips.
Yeah, I had no joke. I had a little bit of trouble sleeping after learning about the Hour of Joy. I don't know what it was. It was just the concept that they were just standing there around the factory doing a tour, and like he just came to life on them. You know, like it was. I mean, I don't think it's scary now. I mean, it's a little freaky, of course, but it was just like, I don't know. Sometimes at night, some stuff just scares you, and it really shouldn't.
It could move,
but
breathe, and
it was scaring me that
like
night. Thinking about it,
with the only real downside being that he required food to survive, unlike the prototype. Harley showed Boxy off to Leith Pierre to pitch the program, the Bigger Bodies Initiative.
I remember
which
that.
Leith would ultimately approve of, assigning each bigger body Harley would create with their own specific task. Boxy Booze was to be the factory's Punisher. In order to ensure nobody found out about the experiments they were working on, Harley would tailor Boxy Boo's appetite to human flesh, so in case any employees or tour guests saw anything they weren't supposed to, they wouldn't leave with the factory secrets, but that wouldn't be a problem for now. In order to ramp up production further, Eddie Ritterman would re-sign with Warrenbach Construction later in 1990 to build even more things. Firstly, creating a larger laboratory for the experiments under the entire factory where nobody would find it, offering $100,000 to Warrenbach to keep it all a secret. They would build the gas production zone, which would produce the red smoke and distribute it throughout the factory, specifically into Playcare, as they needed to settle down the children, while they would also create the game station, a building connected directly to Playcare
is
by
where
a
I actually had another theory that came
that
true.
On the surface was disguised as a playground
they were actually
area where children
testing the
could have
kids' like
fun
reaction time and abilities
mini games,
to see if they fit in the toys.
Game of Simon Says, Whack-A-Wuggy, a
and that's
game
what they were doing. They were testing their
and
physical abilities
Statues,
and stuff.
a game of Red Light, Green Light. However, in reality, this place was actually built so that scientists could test the children's physical and mental cognition in the games and pick the best ones for experimentation based on their performance. Also creating the 3 games mascots, Bunzo Bunny, Mini Huggies, Bodies and PJ Pugapillar into real bigger bodies to run the games for them. With all these expansions, they would hire a ton of new scientists to work and mass produce these creations, like Dr. White, another prodigy from the Young Geniuses program, and a biologist by the name PW, who will matter more later.
Is that us?
Together, they would start to mass produce a ton of these toys, creating some failures like Pianosaurus Experiment 1163, who acted like a rabid animal attacking anything in sight with no real other use, and Yarnaby Experiment 1166, who was once a child named Quinn Navidson, originally deemed to be a bad kid as his game station performance was low, but after being mentored by Harley himself, improved his score tremendously and would be chosen to be turned into the Yarnaby monster, who for whatever reason displayed an odd sense of loyalty to certain staff members, leading to Harley Sawyer manipulating this emotion by isolating himself with Yarnaby until he became so emotionally dependent on him that he could control Yarnaby and what he did completely.
I remember this. I thought that was super messed up, so I felt bad for Yarnaby,
would happen to Harley,
but then I also got pissed off at Yarnaby,
grieving and unable to do anything for weeks. But as time went on, they also started to create more successful experiments, like with Huggy Wuggy Experiment 1170, who was tasked with being the Playtime security guard and was seen as obedient, rarely fighting back with staff, and Kissy Missy Experiment 1172, who was similar to Huggy in almost every way. So the Bigger Bodies initiative was generally successful. They were building tons of new experiments that didn't always work, but they were at least getting better every time, and they even started to replace the workers in play care by creating toys like Miss Delight, different clones of her, to replace all the teachers in the school area. However, to cut costs even further, for their next project, they wanted to create a new Bigger Body that would spit the red smoke around Home Sweet Home where the children would sleep for them. And calling back to the Smiling Critters fiasco, they decided who else but a monster version of Catnap to fit the role. They had already around this point began testing bigger body versions of previous Smiling Critters like Bobby Bear Hug, Hoppy Hopscotch, and Dog Day. So they already had an idea on what to do and how to make him successful. So they began developing plans to create a tall, lanky Catnap monster with cat-like qualities and a gas delivery apparatus implanted into his esophagus. So while the creature roamed the area, red gas would naturally emit from his mouth while he breathed. They also detailed a long list of different children in play care they wanted to use for this experiment, with one in particular standing out among the rest, Theodore Gramba.
But with Theodore, another ad. Okay.
Tostitos,
so
made the traditional way.
We're going through it.
Take the next step in treating your moderate to severe ulcerative colitis with Intibia.
How we doing today,
the
chat?
Only gut-focused treatment.
Gut-focused treatment.
Theo
now we're back to the video.
Mysterious child who didn't really have
Theodore, I remember that.
Him,
and he drew the prototype under his bed.
About having some kind
some
of
eyes.
imaginary
I remember that.
friend. And when looking through Theo's drawings, they would find a sketch of said friend, 1006, the prototype, who had seemingly escaped his cell and was now lurking around Playcare befriending Theo. However, this wasn't an even relationship, as the prototype would begin to use Theo, who would get caught digging through Playtime Co. employee files under the order of his imaginary friend, and would also steal 2 sets of grab pack hands and green electric hand attachments. An extension they added to the hands to allow electricity to be transferred to doors and power them on. Then suddenly, one night at Home Sweet Home, Theo made a run for the exit with 1006, attempting to power on the doors to leave Playcare using the green electric hands. However, being only a 7-year-old child, Theo would accidentally misfire and shock himself, leaving himself with severe burns while opening the exit gate. But from here, something really
Do you think the prototype was like, God damn it, I could have gotten out of here, and this stupid 7-year-old shocked himself. I could see him just being pissed off, even though you shouldn't be.
The prototype at any moment could have made a run for it, leaving Theo to die and escaping Playcare alone. But in what must have been a moment of the true Elliot inside of him showing, he had a change of heart, and instead alerted authorities to Theo's injuries, saving his life, but getting himself caught in the process. Following this event, seeing Theo's rowdiness, they decided that he would be the prime victim to be chosen for Catnap Experiment 1188 in November.
Chapter 3, I hated Mr. Catnap.
Which,
They're
upon
so
operation,
scary.
could generally be considered a success, as he could walk around and
Look at
spit
that.
the red smoke as he was supposed to. But that's not to say he didn't have a few various problems. For one, the children found Catnap to be really scary at first, which was obviously bad since he was supposed to be around them every night. Plus, eventually his voice box broke, giving him a scary, raspy voice. But by far, his biggest issue was that he was seemingly obsessed with the prototype. As a child, the prototype was his only true friend, and after saving his life in the Green Hand incident, Catnap saw the prototype like a god, following him around wherever he went in the same way a puppy would follow its owner. He was completely under 1006's control more than even the employees. But even more issues would arrive on November 20th, 1990.
He's so
As
scary.
inside of Playcare's Playhouse, they had created a bunch of holding cells in order to hold the experiments until they were needed. And while attempting to confine Catnap into
I'm glad they answered that, because when I went to the cells section, I was like, why? This is a freaking factory for toys and kids. Why did they build jail cells? And that's a crazy, creepy frame to pause on.
Of these holding cells, he would, in a fit of rage, escape and go on a rampage, attacking 6 employees and killing them before several tranquilizer darts were shot into him, subduing him, with one of the witnesses and reporter of the incident being the biologist PW, urging for better safety equipment while seeing firsthand the inhumanity of these experiments and what it did to the children inside the bodies. Regardless, this situation would be covered up by the company, and afterwards, Leith Pierre would begin to put together a group known as the Resource Extraction Specialists, who were in charge of collecting parts and evidence after tragedies just like this one. Also building an employee-only train station used so they could quickly move throughout the dangerous areas, which are good things, but they also cost the company a lot of money. For now, though, Catnap would keep getting evaluated into 1991, where things started to lighten up as the bigger bodies kept expanding. For instance, in light of the recent tragedy, they would also build the Safe Haven, a bunker-off room that ran on its own power system with highly protected doors and safety features, designed so employees in the event of another emergency could go and hide inside until it was safe to leave. And going back to Playcare, the scientists grew interested in experimenting on the child Marie Payne, who didn't fit particularly well inside, as she responded super negatively to the red smoke, having severe night terrors when administered. So they would instead turn her into an original toy experiment, Mommy Longlegs. A stretchy, long-arm toy that, after creating, was at first really concerning, as while she was loving and kind to her fellow orphans, she was violent towards the employees. So to get use out of her, they transferred her to the game station as the children's daycare attendant, while they examined from far away, and the children loved her so much that they even created a toy out of her to sell to the public, being another big success for Playtime Co. There was also another child in Playcare worth noting, who was named Ollie, a child who at first wouldn't seem notable, as he was just another kid in the thousands that flooded the Playcare's orphanage. But the main difference was he had a phone of some sorts that allowed him to communicate across the factory, specifically with another super important child, Poppy. These two never saw each other, but at some point began acting.
I didn't know we had Ollie lore, you know? Obviously, there's the whole prototype thing at the end, but I didn't know we had the real Ollie lore. So, have you played Skyblock yet? No, I have not played Skyblock yet. I don't plan to. It's not on my list. I don't want to get addicted. Like, honestly, that's one of my reasons. I'm scared I would start to grind the hell out of it, and I have other games that need to continue right now. But I mean, it's definitely, since you've mentioned it, it's been considered like further down the line when I get through a bunch of games and content. So, bro, Fundable said, bro. Okay, don't know what that means.
Communicating through this phone, where Poppy, who was struggling with being forced to let
You're not on my
employees study
history?
her and take her apart, was able to confide in Ali and talk with him to help calm her
Ooh.
down.
Oh, we have footage.
Yes, I'm here. Are you feeling okay? Did the bad men hurt you? The bad men don't say what they want. They don't care how much anything hurts. It's been weeks and weeks of taking things out and putting them back in and taking things out and putting them back in. Over and over and over. Nothing's ever gotten better. And it'll never get better. I'm nothing now. Oh,
Damn.
you're not nothing to me. You're Poppy. I'm here, Poppy. For you, I'll always be here.
Giving her her only true friend in the factory after being turned into the monster she
So
felt
there
she
was a reality.
Speaking of monsters,
I have another game wrecked,
following
but
this,
Richard,
with all of these different experiments roaming
your
around the
target
factory,
audience
the secret
is?
was bound to slip at some point about what was truly
I
going
don't
on down here.
really care
And
about
at first,
that.
It would start
We
small,
played Last of
as
Us on the
March
channel,
21st,
and
employee
people
Marcus
enjoyed,
Brickley would
so
report to Leith-Pierre seeing
pretty
a
mature.
1,000-legged monster in the cafeteria
I remember
roaming
this.
around.
I took a peek beneath the gate, and some massive bloody thing was doddering about the bloody
Septic-
hallway.
Thing? You're sure it wasn't a person?
Ain't no person that's 50 feet long with 1,000 legs.
Not knowing it was a bigger body of
Thousand
PJ
legs.
Puggafeller. Thankfully,
Dispatch.
though,
Oh, yeah,
this
I've been
report
following
stayed
Dispatch.
small, as Leith rubbed it off as being in Marcus's imagination, and eventually
I
he
remember.
forgot
Oh,
about
so
it.
that was
However,
Leith
just over
again.
a week later on
Yeah. I followed Dispatch. First two episodes came out like the 22nd. The 29th had episodes 3 and 4. But I heard people saying episode 4's opening was crazy. And based on how they were saying it, I think I know what they were talking about. But yeah, I was looking at it, but it doesn't seem like my type of game, really. Yeah, but I appreciate the suggestion. It's so peak. Episode 4 opening's completely normal.
30th, employee Rowan Stoll,
I
a
don't
Playtime Co.
believe you.
IT specialist, would make another report claiming it looked like the Huggy statue in the lobby was watching guests on the tours, unaware it
that's
was
scary.
a living thing. However, unlike Marcus, Rowan kept investigating and started digging into Playtime Co.'s secrets in
Ooh,
search of
that Marcus is
answers,
gonna die.
learning about the Bigger Bodies initiative and what Playtime Co. was working on behind the scenes, which obviously horrified him, and he wanted to get the word out. So he used his IT skills and uploaded all of his findings onto a computer server. However, quickly, Playtime Co. caught onto this and would try to kill Rowan by
Yep.
doing things like messing
Said
with
they
the
would try and
wheels
do
of his
that.
car, hoping for an accident.
Oh, God.
This obviously scared Rowan since a big company was coming after him, and he realized his fate was coming near. So he wrote a letter containing
Internet
the
wasn't a thing
information
back
to
then,
access
huh?
the computer files he was working on containing all of the secrets, sending it out to his mother on July 15th, 1991, while also recording
Oh,
one
so it got
final
out there.
VHS tape saying his final goodbyes and detailing his plan to release all of his findings during the next week's security maintenance.
Congested
Oh,
and
does he
a
not
bad
get
case
to
of
release
sick of
them?
this because you're sick of
Did he
this
not
whole
send
having
them to
take
his
care of
mom in
yourself even
time?
when you
Next week, I've scheduled the company, the servers, the security to be shut down for 60 minutes of maintenance. While security is out, I'm going to release everything and run.
Where days later, they finally caught him in a room
Oh,
with Boxy Boo,
Boxy.
who finally got to put his human appetite to
Oh,
work, eating
no.
Rowan's soul and killing him. Then a few more days
Rowan.
later, on July 20th, during Rowan's planned maintenance, Playtime Co. would instead wipe all of their computer databases, including the files he planned to release, keeping all of
didn't
their company
release
secrets
them yet?
hidden, at least for now.
What's
Things
bro
generally
doing?
coasted along for the rest of the year for Playtime Co., leading into 1992, where there
1992.
started to be
At least we're not
another
skipping
problem.
10 years at a
As
time
with
again.
Elliot Ludwig being dead, the employees seemingly started to store various
I love this
different
picture he's
body
using
parts
for Ed
inside
Ludwig
of his house, including
neighborhood.
those of a young experimented on child
I
that was
remember that.
eventually discovered by the public.
Wait,
which
so this was
obviously
discovered
bad for the
after
company's
Elliot was already
reputation.
dead.
And furthermore, on
Okay.
June 18th of the same year, for seemingly no reason, one of Playtime Co.'s best and most successful and obedient and toys Huggy Wuggy would suddenly snap and break for Playtime Co.'s exit, escaping the factory during the night and wreaking complete havoc in the outside forest, killing multiple employees and even being spotted in residential neighborhoods. And while thankfully both of these incidents were able to be swept under the rug, as Elliot's neighbors already saw him as weird, giving them a good alibi for the body being there, and they managed to subdue Huggy without any of the public seeing him, these close calls were starting to get worrying and also showed that the monsters were seemingly getting more and more aggressive over time, especially since in another experiment, 1199, the employees turned worker Thomas Clark into a Braun toy after he contracted lung cancer to try and save his life.
Yeah, I was talking about that too, like saving them
by
from
the other
sickness.
toys who could tell he was an employee, showing how much more aggressive they were getting. Speaking of which, Harley Sawyer in the background kept studying his first creation, the prototype, who as well started to show more signs of aggression. For instance, in a log of Harley Sawyer's, he finally opened up and spoke to him, asking if he felt any kind of remorse for what he was doing to the toys, and how he was forcing them to live these terrible lives in the name of progress.
Ready to talk now, are you?
I remember this one.
A question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything? You stick us.
Beat us.
Tear at flesh.
Do you feel it?
But moving into Christmas of 1992, the accidents wouldn't stop, as the child Jack, who was a big fan of Playtime Co., was gifted a toy.
I wonder if he knows. I wonder if Harley knows that that's his mentor right there, Elliot Ludwig, and he got some extra resentment there, maybe.
The following year, 1993. However, while at the tour in the sector where the famous Doughy Dough was being created, he accidentally slipped over the guardrails and fell into the dough itself, consuming him and killing him right in front of his parents. This was another Playtime Co. tragedy that they had to deal with, but thankfully this time they had a plan, as they had already been producing all of these experiments out of children for years now. So they decided to try and keep this story from reaching the public. They would attempt to revive Jack by turning him into a bigger body of his favorite toy, Doughy the Dough Man. The only issue is Jack was just a small child, and in order to create Doughy, he was going to have to be a large 900-pound beast. So to complete the experiment, they would need to combine him with two other children they already had in play care. Those two being Matthew Hollard, an older and more mature child, and Kevin Barnes, a smart but also extremely temperamental child. And when combining all three of these to create Doughy, it was only partially a success, as the three personalities would constantly clash with each other and take control, with him sometimes being cute and friendly like the child Jack, wise and mature like the child Matthew, or on the negative side, angry and aggressive like Kevin. Regardless, they would invite Jack's parents over to the factory to show that they saved their son. And upon entering the testing chamber with Doughy, they were horrified by what they saw. A massive half-ton being of Doughy the Dough Man meant to be their child.
What did you do to him? Dear, look at it. That's not even human.
Regardless, though, they tried to talk with the creature, where instead of displaying the personality of Jack, he almost immediately became aggressive with the parents and started violently attacking them.
Hey, you'll be okay, I promise. Mommy's only here to talk.
No, I don't want to talk. Get out! Susan, get away from it!
Jack?
And despite them begging the employees to be let out of the chamber during this attack,
and
the scientists couldn't just let them see this and report it to the public. So unfortunately, they had to leave it closed, where both of the parents died.
Please, open the door! Please!
And afterward, Doughy realized what he did and switched personalities back to Jack, crying over both of his dead parents.
They should not have combined personalities. That is clear. Clearly a mistake.
Lenovo Legion. I never thought I
There's so many ads, chat.
I was wrong.
I mean, it is a longer video, right? But like, come on.
So following.
Okay, chat. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. BRB. This is a lot more than I thought there was already, to be honest. This video is flying by. Servers go back online in 1 minute and 20... 1 minutes and 20 minutes? That doesn't make sense. Sorry, chat. On Fortnite, duh. I know you're saying Fortnite, but that's not an accurate measurement, what you said. You said the servers go back online in 1 minute in 20 minutes. That doesn't make sense. The servers go back online in 1 minute in 20 minutes. The servers go back online in 1 minute, which 1 minute in 20 minutes. In 20 minutes? 1 minute. So in 20 minutes, it'll go back online in 20 seconds. In 20 seconds, it'll go back online in 1 minute. Do you mean 1 minute and 20 seconds? You said 1 minute in 20 minutes. In. Did you mean and? And? Okay, so 1 minute, 20 seconds, so it's like back already, okay. Okay. Let's continue, chat.
Major incidents, the company and specifically Leith Pierre began to grow frustrated with Harley Sawyer. He had hired him to save the company money and their reputation after the catnap disaster.
He saves
all
them?
of these incidents put them just one bad day away from the company being ruined again. Which
Hey,
Harley
Leith's an
was aware of, as he
asshole,
began
bro.
to grow extremely strict towards his employees and colleagues, urging them to be perfect and threatening that they were just one bad day away. He even went livid on the Playtime co-chefs for accidentally putting pickles in his sandwiches that he didn't like. So tensions were at an all-time high, and around this point, Harley ran into
I get it though.
another
Pickles shouldn't be in
major
a sandwich.
issue. He had kept experimenting on these bodies all this time,
On the
creating
side.
dozens upon dozens of experiments. But as more were created, he didn't really
so
have
scary,
anywhere
bro.
to put all of them. There were only a few cells inside of the playhouse to store them, and otherwise they would just freely roam around the factory, which led to issues like the Marcus Brickley one from before. So to try and fix this, he would begin to store the monsters inside of the Playtime theater, where he would use the inactive experiments for the shows tour guests would watch to create an ultra-realistic experience, since of course the toy actors were the real things, solving the problem of having nowhere to put them. However, as these toys would begin to pile up in the theater,
do they
this
want to
quickly
act?
became a ticking time bomb
Did they say
that
they want
on
to?
one fateful day
They're gonna
would
kill
go off,
all the people
and
in
the
the
many
theater?
toys shoved in the theater during a performance would, as you would expect, go haywire, attacking everybody inside of the theater watching the show, including 66 different people who were killed, 12 of which being employees and the others all being innocent civilians from
just
the
wanted to
outside
watch
world, with
the
presumably
theater performance?
hundreds of other witnesses. This was the final
Hundreds of
straw.
witnesses?
Harley's experiments
get
had
away with
finally
that?
attacked civilians like what they were worried about, out. And just like that, the company he was hired to build back up after the massive controversy in 1989 was put in the negative spotlight once again, destroying all of the work he had tried to fix over the past 4 years. Leith was infuriated.
They can't be
and would
mad at
gather
him,
the other
bro.
higher-ups, Stella Graber and Eddie Ritterman, to task the private investigator Jared Lockhart once again with investigating the theater incident
The
and
same guy,
confirming their
Jared.
suspect. Where quickly, as they thought, the one responsible seemed clear.
Dr. Harley Sawyer.
Things at this point had gone too far, and Sawyer needed to be stopped. The experiments were out of control. They had ruined the company he had tried to build up. However, at the same time, they couldn't just get rid of Sawyer.
What was it? His name? I already forgot it. Ramen?
Extremely valuable
No.
and is what got them this far in the first place.
Well, I forgot his name was
they
an
needed
R.
a way to control his body while still keeping his mind
Roman.
intact,
Roman?
giving them the idea to give Harley a taste of his own medicine by tasking
This is
scientist
messed up.
Dr. White to experiment on his body and create him into an experiment.
I think
of
this
his
is messed
own.
up.
Some people might give you one
They got
pizza
mad
for
at him when they're the ones that brought him in.
because more is
You know, they're the ones that brought him into this. I mean, he did his experiment, and then when they're not happy with how he's running things, but they still want his mind, they're gonna keep him. I was so on the doctor's side here. But in the game, he did try and kill me, so that was kind of sucky.
Doctor. Taking Harley Sawyer's various different vital body
I was on his
parts, and
side.
specifically his brain, and shoving them into a bunch of old machines of Elliot Ludwig's to maintain them, attaching them to Playtime Co.'s computer systems so they could power him
I wish
on
the
and
doctor and
off
I
as
teamed
needed.
up, bro.
Then they would finally activate him, turning him on where he successfully woke up, but definitely wasn't very happy as he began to scream at Leith Pierre, threatening to eventually kill him for what he's done.
Let me tell you how this is gonna go, Sawyer. From now on, you're here to give the lab boys answers when they need them. That's it. You'll be an open book.
Leith
to
has
us
a
whenever
distinct
we
voice
want.
that has been used throughout.
Time for this, Leith. When I get my hands on you, you're a dead man!
However,
Did he
at
ever
least
kill
for
him?
now, Harley was dealt with finally. As
Did
for
he ever
the
kill
other
him?
experiments, they couldn't just shove them all back into the theater where Harley left them. Another incident like this was just bound to happen again. So instead, Eddie Ritterman hit up Warnbach
But
Construction.
there was over 100 witnesses to this. It's not like, hey, yo, everyone, this toy came alive. Like it wasn't a fake play, you know? The toy was actually alive and ate like 60 people in front of me. Like, there's none of that? They're not reporting
ordered
that?
the production of the Playtime prison. Something Warnbach desperately did not want to do as they slowly realized what was going on deep into the factory. But Eddie left them with no real choice after their contract in 1990 that legally forced them to build it.
I don't like
A lot of this is just me saying I remember that.
What in the world would a
Because I am
toy
curious
company need with a prison?
what
Let me give you
I know
a
and
bit of
don't.
history. In 1972, you signed a contract. A legally binding piece of paper that says whatever is asked of you, you do it. In 1990, you signed another, a renewal. So now you do the work because we've given you a directive. I get paid to see that things get done. And this, like everything else, will get done.
Where from there, they would hire themselves the warden, who was in charge of watching all of the experiments put into the prison, and also got access to the Omni Hand, a Playtime Co. grab pack hand they were working on that was only given to the main higher-ups in the company: Leith Pierre, Stella Graber, Eddie Ritterman, and of course now the warden, which gave them access to every door in all of the factory. Alongside the prison, they would build the secondary labs, which is where Harley Sawyer was stored, and would be ran by Dr. White, placed right next to the prison so they could harvest the body parts of failed experiments and use them on better experiments instead of just letting them roam around where another accident can happen. As the factory would roll
Yeah,
into
I mean,
1994
they just keep
and
digging
early
themselves a
1995,
hole
it
with
kept
more
moving
experiments
generally
and
was
more
growing.
body
With other
parts.
small experiments being made,
It
like
was
the
bound
mini
to just go
critters and
nuclear at
mini
one
nightmare
point.
critters that were built as technology progressed, and the scientists were able to create smaller bodies, like
Who
what was
would buy a
originally
nightmare
planned
critter?
at the start of the program.
Unless you
However,
thought you were a
from
cool
here,
kid.
other looming issues began
Maybe.
to come up. On the employee side, when trying to expand the company further, the employees found that the red gas that they had built pipes around the
flammable?
entire factory for was extremely flammable.
Yeah,
So
let's blow up
continuing
the whole
building
factory in
underneath
Chapter
the
5.
factory was dangerous since the pressure down below was greater, and one small fire or explosion could explode the entire factory from the bottom up. So to combat this, they started to produce canisters of liquid nitrogen that were designed to keep things cool in emergencies. While on the monster side, Kissy Missy, one of the earlier successful experiments, started to show severe signs of anxiety. So bad to a point where she could no longer work, and they had to put her into storage for the time being to hopefully calm her down. But Kissy wasn't the only one who began to get anxious.
why she was
As
strapped?
along with her, the employee and biologist from the past, PW,
PW?
began to get worried about the state of the company and all of the experiments they were forced to work on, having a growing guilt building in the back of their mind.
Are we
this
learning
wasn't morally
more
right
about
experimenting
ourselves?
on these
That'd be
kids
cool.
until they turned into violent monsters that were going crazy. And it started to weigh on PW heavily, as they would contemplate quitting and would take days off when the orphans would visit, not wanting to look them in the eye. So, like other people had tried to do in the past, they began to log down the things going on in the factory, collecting various different papers and evidence against the factory and putting them into
Don't tell
one
me
of
they
their
don't get this
orientation
info out
notebooks,
either.
exposing the full story of Playtime Co. and their experiments to be left behind if something ever happened. And speaking of which, during this entire time, the tensions between the employees and the monsters, more specifically the prototype, only kept growing. 1006 was no longer going to keep letting these experiments happen. This was his factory before, and he grew sick day by day watching it become a place of corporate greed and scientific cynicism. He needed
Ludwig
to
used to-
stop it all.
he used to have
And
more of a
after
passion
seeing what
about the
happened
kids.
in the 1993
I
theater
thought he was a
incident,
straight
he
up
knew that
bad
the
guy,
other
but this
experiments
video's
were his
making me feel a
key
little
to
more for
freedom.
him, you know?
So over the next few
Leaf
months, the prototype
was
began to
a
create
loser.
a plan with the toys, saying that
loser.
if they all
Alliteration
at
right
the
there.
exact same time attacked every single employee and human being
But
in
they
the factory,
attacked
they could
the
kill
innocent.
all of them like how they did in the theater incident, and the prototype would free them from their torment and solitude. And of course, they saw how the prototype saved Catnap as a child and had attacked employees in the past, so they knew that they could trust him to finally free them.
definitely alluded to
date
the fact
they
that
chose
Poppy-
for this attack was August 8th,
Ooh.
1995. At
Poppy's series of
11
events is not
a.m.
right when
Playtime
it comes
Co.
to Hour of
kept
Joy.
running up until this day, even constructing new
11 a.m.
buildings like a Playtime Park. However, when the fateful day would finally arrive at this fateful time, the toys finally, once and for all, attacked.
At the time, my schizophrenia delusions and hallucinations
my
were full
schizophrenia,
blown. I thought people
the
were-
hour of
Almost
joy.
every single monster in the entire factory went haywire at the exact same
Oh,
time.
that's
Catnap attacked
horrifying,
everyone
bro.
in Playcare. Miss Delight attacked everyone in the school. Huggy attacked all the tour guides up in the main lobby. Kissy Missy was actually in the process of being transported to Playcare from Storage B when the incident happened, where she attacked the extraction specialist.
But she
Every
didn't kill
single
them
adult
like
human
everyone
that
else.
was there that day was killed. One employee who
Nobody else got
attempted to
out?
escape was the warden, who ran into Harley Sawyer on his way out, where he begged him for some help. So Harley had made him an offer. If he gave Sawyer that Omni hand he had that could control all of the doors,
I
in the
remember that tape and
factory,
being like,
Harley, who
"Don't
was
do it.
connected to the
Don't give him the
computer
hand."
system, could
And
use
then
it
he gave
to
him the
open
hand.
all of the doors for him remotely and give him a way out. The warden, out of desperation, agreed, giving Sawyer full control to the factory, where we never hear from him again. However, while we can assume he died among
can
the
assume he
rubble,
died.
one person actually did survive the hour of joy. None other than PW, who had fortunately missed work this day and therefore wasn't there for the hour that killed every single employee but them. With the next day, all of the other employees completely disappeared.
Wait, literally every other employee went to work that day? PW's the only one in this whole factory that took a day off that day? That's crazy, bro. Maybe the toys timed it perfectly, like vacations just happened or something, so they would most likely be working. But then I hope he answers this. I don't know if they've answered it yet, but like, why wasn't there police on this? Why wasn't there media covering this? Why has nobody been back in this factory to see what happened? Like, you know? All that stuff. I hope they answer.
And Co. officially ceasing to
yeah, Playtime Co. just stopped.
But
like,
this wasn't it for the monsters.
The world wasn't
going
confused?
back
Why?
into the factory, every toy was seemingly freed from the control of the employees, and like the prototype promised, no longer had to live in this factory. They were all safe. Except the prototype wasn't being fully honest, as despite saying all the toys would be freed afterwards, that was kind of a lie. I mean, they were humans.
I hate Mr. Light.
Into toys.
Stop it.
They couldn't exit here and live in a society like this even if they wanted to. Instead, the prototype didn't want to just kill the employees that ran his factory as a person. He wanted to take over himself. Since the place after this almost immediately erupted into pure anarchy and chaos. Every toy that survived the attack were all instantly forced to fend for themselves, hunting for the remaining food in the factory, whether that be from the old workers'
Prototype was stopping them from
eventually
exiting the place?
to kill each other just for a bite to eat. Some did this and survived, while others refused and would
it's
rot
crazy.
away slowly. However,
they've
the
human
prototype who
skulls
didn't
in
need
there,
to
bro.
eat had devised a plan to take back control of the factory by creating his very own cult, where with his companion Catnap, who stuck by his side this entire time, he would offer the toys to go under the prototype's worship and rule to be rewarded with protection and food to sustain themselves, while also striking a deal with the Playcare School's teacher, Miss Delight, who after the Hour of Joy was locked inside of the school for an unknown reason with all of her sisters.
Whoever
after
encountered,
spiraling
that's what I was
into
gonna say.
insanity,
Whoever encountered Miss Delight on the Hour of Joy, all these Miss Delights, that was the worst outcome. Imagine you're just chilling at the school and they all come for you and beat you to death with pencils. And scissors, I guess they have around probably. Like, oh my god.
Days with no food, she built herself a friend/weapon, Barb, and used them to kill all of her sisters and eat them. However, before running out of food, the school's doors would unlock, and it was revealed Catnap was there, who offered to take care of her from there and protect her as long as she protected the school and reported what she saw to the prototype. However, as for the ones who would choose not to follow this cult, you would be hunted and used for food for the rest. Now, this would all mainly be held inside of Playcare, or at least what was left of Playcare, where some experiments like the mini critters would worship the prototype, others like Hoppy Hopscotch would successfully run away, while less fortunate ones like Dog Day would try to pretend to be on the prototype side at first, but would eventually be captured and held in the Playcare prison for the followers to feast on his body day by day, bit by bit. While this was all going on, the prototype who spared all of the orphans inside of Playcare wanted to move them deep underground into the Playtime labs and store them where they would never be found. However, in order to do this, shockingly, he would begin to work with none other than Harley.
Okay, how are they still alive though? If it's been, I mean, it's been what, like 10 years? 10 years, right? Like, what did they eat? You know? Don't tell me there's like one orphan left who ate the rest of the other orphans. I don't know what they ate. And then, yeah, this... What about the hopscotch person they just mentioned? The bunny? Did they get out of... They said ran away. Did they get out of the whole facility? Like, surely they would have found civilization then. Like, right?
Who, being an experiment, survived the attack and was approached by the prototype. Sure, they didn't like each other, but Harley wanted to keep experimenting and progressing his mission, while the prototype needed an Omni-Hand to access the rest of Playtime Co. So together they would collaborate, giving the prototype access to the entire factory, while in return helping Harley with experimentation, creating things like the Dr. Minions, allowing him to physically move around the factory.
Yeah, wait, okay, so sorry for the pause. Did Leith and Stella and Eddie, like, all of them die? They were all here one day too, and they all died one day? Like, to the prototype or something? Leith gives a final tape. He's like, end of, and then like somebody gets to him, right? Okay, I'm just thinking. Just like, okay, I kind of wanted the doctor to get his revenge, you know? I don't know if he did.
And through these robotic
Or even
beings.
if they're all dead,
Outside
for
of
sure.
those two,
Imagine
while
we
the
find them
outskirts
down
of the
there,
factory were turned
alive.
into a complete wasteland,
Imagine
it
we find
wasn't
other
all
people
bad
alive,
for the
like
rest
the
of the
orphans.
toys, as some of them actually managed to make it into Playtime Co.'s safe haven built by the workers before the factory went down, which, as mentioned, was completely sealed off from the entire rest of the place. Nobody could access it, and nobody
wonder how
could
many
open
people
it
watch
from
this
the
video without ever
outside,
playing the
with
games.
some of the main notable survivors being
chapters.
Hoppy Hopscotch, who made
Hoppy
it here,
Hopscotch. Oh, we
a
made it
Boogie
here.
Bot, who they
Okay,
turned
okay.
into a medic, Poppy Playtime, Kissy Missy, and the leader of the safe haven, Doughy the Dough Man. They all gathered together to live in here on
Doughy's
their
got a
own
cool design, too,
generator,
with, like,
and would
3
even
different
go
hands
on
on him
trips
as
to
well.
bring food to the helpless experiments
Doughy's a
around
cool
the rest of the
character.
factory.
He
The only
was.
issue was, in the depths of the factory, all that remained over the years outside of the prototype's cult were these vicious, bloodthirsty critters inhabiting the open worlds that moved around hunting
I don't
and
like
trying
how
to get
fast
a
we killed the
bite of
doctor, by the
anything
way,
they
in
could
chapter
find
4.
fending for themselves.
Only thing I
This
kinda
led to the
dislike about
toys
the chapters.
sometimes getting attacked, like Hoppy Hopscotch, who got jumped in an expedition, making it
Ooh.
back with severe injuries
Oh, I
and
remember
eventually
that.
dying.
Oh, he
Diagnosed with
died?
Crohn's disease and
I don't
struggling
remember
with your
that, bro.
symptoms, it's not too
Struggling
soon to
with
talk to your
Crohn's
doctor about
disease
an
and getting jumped in a
This
factory.
obviously was horrifying and began to scare the toys inside of the safe haven and incite panic. For instance, Doughy, who was supposed to be the leader of the safe haven, had the tendency to randomly leave and daydream about escaping the factory.
For the past few months, the fighting's been bad. I'm
Remember he
here,
made a tape at the end.
outside the prison, and seeing this again, it's given me reason to think I could make for the exit.
Only turning back when realizing the children needed them, while Poppy was not so lucky. Still being a young child, she tended to panic and run away
been
when stressed out.
decades.
With her on one of these panic-inducing days, choosing to
She's still a
completely
young child?
leave Safe Haven, where upon her exit, she wouldn't return, scaring the survivors that the worst had happened. So they built her a shrine and sketched out drawings begging for
left
her
us.
return. However, outside of Safe Haven, during her run and escape, she ran into none other than the prototype 1006, who
Yeah,
had been
I'm not
looking
surprised,
for
Poppy.
her
You're
for
a coward.
years. This was
Abandoned
the
me as
first
well.
experiment and was by far the most perfect. It was Elliot's daughter before Elliot became the prototype, and despite her hiding away and not knowing 1006's true identity, he was still emotionally connected to her and found her valuable to his mission. He couldn't just kill her or let her leave, so instead he brought her back up to the home where they used to spend all their time together.
Oh,
as
so
a
that's why
unit.
this place
And
looks like
to
a
ensure
home
she didn't run away,
compared
he
to the whole
locked her
factory.
in a case, ensuring she was always
different.
home, and the prototype could still have that one semblance of a family
just
life.
put her in a
amidst
case
all
and
this
she goes to sleep?
chaos.
2000s.
From here on out, this
10
would go
years
on
of
for
this
multiple
abandoned
more
factory.
years until the year
And no one cared.
2005, 10 years after the Hour of Joy,
So
where
we
Kiss
PW?
Missy, the anxiety freak she is, began to get worried. The prototype was being logged and tracked by the Safe Haven members, and as time went on, he
10
started
years they
to
went
figure
through
out
this.
how to get past their traps set up to keep him away, and their generator locking the doors shut from the outside was having issues and needed to be fixed fast before it broke. This obviously was a severe problem, and she needed somebody to save them. And thankfully, being an employee herself, she knew about PW, who had escaped the Hour of Joy and had some kind of sympathy while working here. So using her primitive writing skills, she sketched out a note claiming the staff was still there, since of course some of the experiments
Still here.
survived.
Find the
hour,
flower, and
asking
there's.
PW
I talked
to
about the
find
fact that there's wet blood on that. One, why would you include blood in the letter? If you're giving me a letter with blood on it, I don't think I'm gonna go back to the factory. Two being, why is it still wet if it went through the mail? And wait, 3, how did Kissy get this sent? Like there was a whole mailing system. They're in Safe Haven. How'd they get the mail out to PW? I don't know. Interesting
the
stuff.
flower mural that led to Elliot and Poppy's home, where alongside she attached a VHS tape about Poppy so we knew what this was for. She would send out the letter hoping for the best, and like Poppy, left the safe haven to come searching for PW and helping them on their journey. When receiving the letter, guilt must have gotten the best of PW, as despite the potential danger, they would return to Playtime Co. once again, this time abandoned, looking for answers to what happened to the employees and maybe finally getting some clarity.
Did they inform the police or something that they were doing this?
Starting the main games, where we play as PW themselves, who for now I'm mostly going to refer to as us or the player. Upon entering, we are met with the same old factory lobby, but this time with an ominous liminal vibe in the air. At the front lied a VHS tape by Leith Pierre, warning intruders that inside were intense security systems if they didn't turn back.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre. If you're seeing this, then you're trespassing. This facility is full of hidden motion triggers, which, once set off, will turn on the factory's emergency alarm and directly contact the authorities. And that's one of the more tame aspects of our security system.
But
okay, when they said that the first time, I didn't think he was actually talking about the toys, but I think he was.
Toys piled all around, bloodied
with
and
blood,
dead.
I was always confused
how
toys had blood,
from the
but it makes sense
room,
now.
And upon entering the main lobby, we're met with the horrifying sight of the Huggy Wuggy statue. Regardless, though, we moved forward, and when powering on the doors to the next section, suddenly Huggy was no longer there.
Huggy was nowhere to be found.
Gone from the factory. Since as we kept progressing, he kept seemingly peeking around corners, hunting us down like we were some kind of prey. After traversing through some more areas and collecting a second grab pack hand, we came across Elliot Ludwig's old Make a Friend machine that was still working and powering to this day.
Uncompromising energy deserves uncompromising quality.
This is so the opposite of Poppy Playtime. That little doggy right there. Okay, we get it.
Hobby Lobby. Save on fall floral and
I'm done.
But something definitely seemed off about it, as its eyes began to follow us around, almost like it was as well alive.
Oh,
regardless,
the eyes follow you as well?
That
was the machine alive?
Power on the next door, among the darkness, the Huggy Wuggy bigger body burst through, revealing himself in his entirety, an angry, savage, and hungry beast, chasing the player into a vent where he hunted us down, while writing on the walls reflected how he was desperately starving after years being in the factory, forced to fend for himself like the others. Somehow we would miraculously make it out, and using the grab pack, dropped a box on Huggy's head by the catwalks, knocking him off and down a
Wait, let's go back. Look at that.
Somehow we would miraculously
now that we know he lives, let's go back and track this.
Pack, dropped a box.
Okay, fall, chest,
Huggy's head by the
head, or no, that's shoulder. Head, face,
knocking
and then
him
he's dead.
Off and down a deep
shoulder.
Head. On the other side was the flower mural we had gotten this mysterious note for, which, when entering, we were met with this creepy home aesthetic Elliot Ludwig left
He comes
behind.
back for us.
At the end, we find one final door containing none other than the trapped Poppy doll sitting unconscious, waiting for us, allowing us to grab onto her case and open it, saving her once and for all, causing us to then pass out from all the condensed poppy fumes released from her hair. Poppy would then wake us up from our sleep and guide us out of her home to see Elliot's office right across. After getting the key from the janitor's closet and entering Ludwig's office, we saw what a stand-up man he was.
Yeah, I was surprised his office
and everything he sacrificed for the factory. Through his own biography explaining his story, along with drawings from some children he kept all over his walls. After meeting back up with Poppy, she instructs us that in order to escape, we needed to access the train below in the game station. But what she failed to warn us from is Mommy Longlegs, who was still alive and as aggressive as ever. Mommy would suddenly grab and take Poppy away, blackmailing us by creating a little game. Survive the 3 game station tests and get the train code we were looking for. Where from there, after acquiring our very own green electric hand attachment, Mommy would have us play the death game.
Whoever was playing fist.
challenge.
Imagine hitting this pole.
Mommy would have us play the death games challenge by challenge, facing off against their hungry.
Let's not analyze any of my footage though. I didn't do anything wrong.
In Wacka Wuggy, which after progressing through,
I hated Wacka Wuggy. I hated
her to kill them and tie them up in
I hated the
However,
red light, green light too.
The second game, we would enter a train station where we were trapped, as there was a gate blocking our way, making it impossible.
Now he's just
to
explaining
pass.
the game.
Shortly thereafter, though, a new friend
Kissy.
would reveal themselves from the shadows. It was Kissy Missy, who had been waiting for our arrival and was behind the gate, opening it and then leaving us to continue on our way for the time being. Leading up to the third and final game, Statues, ran by PJ
Pillar.
And here,
you
something
gotta
Mommy
go
Long
on the
Legs
okay.
cleverly hid from us.
If you're curious
was
about
that
the rest,
after
you
making
can
it
come
to
back
the
and watch
end of
later.
the
But
room,
thank you.
the ending was barricaded off, creating a dead end, showing Mommy never truly wanted us to survive. But yet, we managed to break into the observation rooms on the sides, miraculously making it out, which Mommy considered cheating, infuriating her and
oh my god, that jump scared me.
Chasing us
I
down through
remember
a
that
game
happens.
of hide and seek all the way
Just
until she
watching.
ran into a grinder, getting stuck inside before we powered it on, where her body would be shredded up into pieces slowly and gruesomely.
Why is there a grinder
As
there?
she dies, she warned us of a mysterious
I haven't thought about
threat.
that. What the?
Before her body falls down and we see the person she was warning us about. The prototype who had survived this whole time, reaching out from under a gate and taking her body away, presumably to collect a new test subject for him in Sawyer's experiments.
Evie. She jumped at me because I wasn't petting her.
When moving on, we met back up with Poppy, who seemed much more determined and less happy and bubbly, as after seeing us defeat so many of these bigger bodies, this gave Poppy an ambitious idea. When getting on the train, she would suddenly change the tracks and force PW deeper into the factory, specifically into their orphanage, Playcare. She would then accidentally make the train go too fast, and it would end up crashing, knocking us out once more. However, this time, when waking up, we were in the grasps of none other than Catnap, who dumped us away into a garbage disposal, forcing us to crawl our way out. And upon escaping, while Poppy was nowhere to be found, seemingly running away like how she did in the past, we then came across a phone ringing for us that, when answering, had none other than Poppy's old friend Ollie speaking on it. When listening to him, he seemed to be super fond of us and wanted to help us out.
Hey, can you hear me? You look kind of lost. I don't want you to die, so I'm gonna help you.
Guiding us through Playcare's entrance and into the tram that sent us into Playcare itself. From here, we would be brought to none other than the gas production zone, the place where the mysterious red gas was being produced. And Ollie tasked us with moving the gas from Playcare on the right to down in the Playtime Co.'s prison on the left. However, when attempting to do this, the power would conveniently shut down. And from there, we were forced to go into the various different Playcare buildings and activate backup generators to repower everything. Firstly, we'd go into Home Sweet Home, where the surviving bigger body Catnap often resided, flooding the place with red smoke that, when inhaled, caused us to enter a violent dream state. Walking around what we thought was Home Sweet Home, we began to hear news reports flashing back to the body of the young child found in Elliot's home.
Tragic news this morning. As of 9:45 a.m., local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig.
Something that shook PW back when they worked here, realizing the morbid reality of the things they were experimenting on. Furthermore, we ran into a radio tape of the reporter, this time shaming us for missing the hour of joy, the day where everybody, including PW, was supposed to die.
I find your presence intrusive. After all this time, you return.
Oh, I remember this. I reversed this when I heard it because I was like, wait, is that reversible? And then it said 8/8/95, and I was like, "Is that the day this happened?" Bro, I'm really saying how much I got right, chat. I got a bunch right, I guess.
I your prices intrusive. After all this time, you returned. 8/8/1995. You were supposed to be here. Why weren't you here? You missed the event. You missed the meeting. You missed the party.
The survivor's guilt was weighing heavy on PW.
See, that
as
adds
we
more
then
context to
reached
me
their
now that I know
office when
what
they were
happened.
an employee,
Then I didn't know
that
about the
again
Hour of Joy.
reminded PW of the guilt haunting over us. Finally, coming across the labs room where we originally created the experiments. And when walking in, the door shut behind us, and out of the TV,
Oh, it's a manifestation of our guilt.
An evil version of Huggy Wuggy
I remember
would
that.
climb out and chase us
Scared
down
the hell out
room,
of me.
attacking us and
Did not
giving us
expect
what
that.
we felt was the punishment we deserved for what we did. However, thankfully, this was all just a dream as we woke up, but now PW was determined to keep digging for this factory's secrets. It's what they owed to the lost children stuck here that they created. Moving through Home Sweet Home, we powered on its generator, where while leaving, we would suddenly be stopped and attacked by none other than Kissy Missy, who in a fit of terror aggressively pounced us. However, thankfully, Poppy was right beside her and calmed her down, letting us go. Kissy was still very clearly traumatized by the events of the Hour of Joy and the friends she lost along the way. However, we were here to help, and
us, bro?
her
You're the one
plan
that wrote
to
the
get
note.
us to come back had worked. From here, Poppy finally explained to us the reason she didn't let us leave is because she saw us as capable for some kind of mysterious mission. After seeing our actions in the past, and even expressed wanting to kill the prototype, although she doesn't go much further. From here, we would continue
Poppy's
on,
not
powering
telling the
up
full
the school,
truth,
which
Jeff.
still held a corrupted
we
version
can't
of
rule
Miss
out the
Delight,
prototype
who
as
we'd
being
make it
right.
past. From there,
They
we
had to
traveled
blur it.
through a large cave system that inside contained what appeared to be a shrine made up from a bunch of dead toys that Catnap had made for his god, the prototype that he would go and
I thought it was the
face
actual
daily.
prototype at
When
first, but then
progressing
of
through,
course
we
I quickly
made
realized
to the
it wasn't. It was
playhouse,
scary.
which held seemingly infinite mini living critters that were a part of the prototype's cult
I
as
hated
well.
these
And when
guys.
making it past all of them, we were met with the Playhouse prison that held one last standing heretic, Dog Day, who would panically beg for our help in stopping everything going on here, but not for too long, as the critters would all come out and finish him off once and for all, eating him, while also possessing his body and chasing us out of the playhouse. The next and final place to power on was the counselor's office.
I
that
hated
when
playing these games,
activated,
but I also
finally
really
gave Holly
enjoyed
the
it.
power needed to activate the gas production zone once again. However, on our way out, Catnap was actually waiting for us and attacked once
then we
more,
hear Poppy's
causing us
voice
to enter
in these
another
flashbacks.
dream
This was
sequence where
interesting.
this time we remember seeing what the factory looked like before the Hour of Joy, getting a glimpse of all of the children that we were experimenting on. But alas, we had woke up and survived.
it? He's not
However,
gonna talk about it
Catnap
more?
was definitely not happy.
With schizophrenia, it
But
can feel
he's not
like
going
your
to talk
symptoms
about it
decide
more,
what you do
the
and
dream
who you can
sequence,
be.
because there is a
If you
part
still-
where that
So
was
from
interesting
there,
me,
Playcare was-
where there's dead toys around and there's one shadow sitting among them, like just sitting there. That was the most interesting one, but
fully repowered, and Ollie sent the final
we
blue
aren't gonna
battery
talk
cell
about
to
that.
the gas production zone,
wait,
where when
did a
entering
whole ass
Catnap
battery
seemingly
come out of there, and I never questioned that.
final blue battery cell to the gas production zone, where when entering it, Catnap seemingly got tired of us and made his final attack, chasing us up
done
into
stalking.
an elevator shaft where red gas
he's
filled
full
the
commitment
area,
now.
and we began to hallucinate him as a colorless monster. From here, we would have to fight
Oh,
off
that's
against the
why he
hallucinations
became
and
scary.
power up the green
Oh, this
hand
was
here
insane,
full of
bro.
electricity, where when fully
This was
powered, we
insane.
charged it and unleashed it onto Catnap, catching
Could
his
not figure it
entire
out at
body
first.
on fire and burning him alive, just like what happened when he was a child, once again putting him near death. From here, the
childhood
prototype would
trauma.
again reveal himself, and Catnap would get into his prayer pose, seemingly begging 1006 for help in the same way he helped him as a child.
begging-
But the
okay.
prototype no longer saw him as useful, so like
takes
Mommy
him.
Longlegs, he killed him.
Okay, but I had two interpretations of this scene. It was either that Catnap was like, I'm cooked, I'm done, let me offer myself to you, my master. Or like this version, help me, and the prototype like kind of taking advantage of like kind of feeling bad for Catnap putting his faith in him to help him after all that he's done, his loyalty to the prototype, and then he still killed him to take use of him. So like he said it's this. Sheep Rampage said this is his version of events, so it might not be exactly true. I think it's one of those two, but the second one that he said is definitely makes more sense. I think I'd say. I mean, they do make sense, but the second one's a little more interesting, I feel like, because you have this person devoted to another and his faith, and showing how faith can betray you sometimes.
And took his body away again for his own
such
use.
a huge,
Thankfully,
like,
after
creepy,
this, we were
lanky
finally
body,
able
bro.
to repower the gas production zone and reroute the gas down into the prison. Poppy and Kissy would then return to go on the lift down with us to complete whatever her mysterious mission was. Before, at the perfect time, while going down, Kissy would be attacked.
Yeah, we don't know what
by
happened
an
to Kissy.
unknown monster. When reaching the bottom of the lift, Poppy tells us that she supposedly has friends.
Maybe there's going to be a reveal that
tasks
someone
us with
took
finding
over
them
Kissy
while
at
she
some
goes
point.
up to save Kissy from whatever was attacking her. From here, we keep exploring around and eventually open up a door to reveal thousands upon thousands of dead toys in a massive graveyard, which when walking through brought us to the train station that led into the Playtime prison. And when entering said train,
Okay,
we
see,
are
this train
met
makes
with
more
a
sense now,
very
learning more.
interesting face, or should I say eye, the eye of Harley Sawyer, who had connected to the Playtime Co. security system through the computer and had been watching our journey through the factory this entire time leading up to now. He would tease and threaten us a bit here before dropping us into the prison. Upon exploring the prison a bit, we would quickly come across the hungry rabid creatures that lived
So
down
much of
in
this
the
is me saying I
Playtime Co.
hated
depths,
stuff.
the nightmare critters, who we fight off and avoid before
Oh my
making it
God.
to a testing chamber, where Harley once again appears and teases to us that he had reunited with an old friend.
Oh, this jump scared me. Yeah, Yarnaby.
Who he had let
Jump scared
loose
me a
on
couple
us
times.
for his own entertainment to watch us get hunted down. And while at first things from here seemed somewhat hopeless, while trying to escape Yarnaby's grasp, a mysterious doughy figure begins to help us out, unlocking different doors and causing
boy
distractions
Doughy,
to
justice
attract
for Doughy,
Yarnaby,
chat.
allowing for us to escape.
Justice
And as
for
we kept
Doughy.
exploring further, eventually we accidentally fell down a chamber and came
Oh, yeah, that
face
fall
to
was
face with
hilarious.
another experiment. Pianosaurus, a
No way
ferocious
we fell
savage
down there,
beast
bro.
who at an instant turned around and started charging towards us. However, thankfully, at the last second, the doughy creature reaches their hands out and grabs
He
onto
got
Pianosaurus,
absolutely
slamming
wrecked.
him around and dragging him into the darkness before eating everything but his head. As the figure emerges from the darkness, he reveals himself as Doughy the Dough Man, the safe haven leader.
Frosty the Snowman ripoff. With your name on it. Just gonna say it.
About it.
He's Frosty the Snowman. Except
Doughy
3
introduces
personalities.
himself
I
and
guess.
guides us towards a
Like,
safe
look at
haven
that.
where Poppy said
That's
her
something
friend
Frosty
would be.
literally
While
does.
moving towards the area, though, suddenly Kissy, who
Oh, that jump
miraculously
scare
survived her
really
attack
got me too.
earlier, dragged us into a crevice where her and Poppy
I was
were
wondering if this
hiding
was the
as
doctor at first,
prototype
but it's
was
the
hunting
prototype.
them down, moving across,
Ooh.
suggesting this was the being that attacked her. And
It's like
from
crab
there,
legs,
they
bro.
gunned it straight into Safe Haven and closed it just in time. They were all safe, and
the prototype
Poppy,
gets
the one
catnapped
that
and
the
then
members
attacks
had
her.
been waiting for years, was back in the Haven. Here, she finally explains to us her full plan. She knew about the prototype hiding the orphans deep below in the labs, and it was going to be our job to go and save them. While the reason she guided the red smoke down into the prison was because she also knew that the red smoke, like we mentioned earlier, was flammable and explosive. So her plan was to bring all of the orphans out of the factory.
I was saying
and
we need to nuke this
explode
place.
the
I said that a bunch.
place, killing the prototype in all of the bad
Yeah,
experiments.
get rid of all
inside
the
it.
experiments,
From here,
all the
Kissy was
research, all the
severely injured
toys.
from her
Get
attack,
rid of
so
it
they
all.
both stayed back and tended to her wounds, while Doughy brought us to the room with the generator and alerted to us that the generator was broken and desperately needed new parts, or else it would stop working and the safe haven would be unprotected. They had the parts already, but the only problem is, to open the generator, the Omni hand was was needed, with the only Omni-Hand known to still exist being in possession of Harley Sawyer. Meaning, before doing anything, we needed to get that hand and save the children in Safe Haven. From here, we kept exploring around, and after having another run-in with Yarnaby where we had ran from him and got him stuck on a hook, killing Harley's pets, we continued onward into the secondary lab, where Harley's
didn't
various
talk about the
body
lava
parts
part
were being stored. Going around
they
the
also
lab, we
burned him.
discovered all of his body parts and destroyed them. However, the last part, his brain, was going to be the hardest as it was heavily guarded. For instance, one of Harley's security measures was keeping some
He's
nightmare
not explaining the
critters
part
of his
that
own aspects to
Poppy
protect
said,
him. And after making
or
it
he
past
said that
this
Poppy was
test,
lying about
Harley
that,
had
Joey.
trapped us into
I'm
a
interested
room,
about
giving
that.
us a super interesting dilemma, forcing us, the employee who
I just
only
escaped.
re-entered the factory to try and cleanse the guilt we felt for creating the experiments, to make a very important decision. Either stay trapped in the room alone and die, ending our mission, or be forced to kill an innocent experiment turned toy
Or
to
escape.
keep
I
progression.
escaped.
Sawyer was painted as the bad guy for killing innocent children to complete his mission. But would we do the same? Well, fortunately, it doesn't really matter because he forgot a ledge we could climb up and escape.
He forgot a hole with a
scot-free.
ledge
But
we could
this
go
brought
through.
us to Harley's final challenge, where we discovered there were hundreds of Sawyer's
I bet so many
minions
people just
waiting
killed
for
the
us
innocent
that
creature
began
right
to
away.
chase us down as we tried to power the gate
I was
to
gonna find
Sawyer's
any other way
mainframe,
before I did
which,
that.
when successfully doing in the next room, brought us
It's
to
like a
Sawyer's
unicorn, little
brain, the
innocent
final
creature.
part of his body that remained. We
No matter
walked
what it
up
looked like,
to
I
it,
would've
and
saved
like
it,
what we
guys.
did with the other body parts,
Yeah.
shut it down, ending and killing the rest of Harley Sawyer. Most importantly, after this, he left
He should have
behind
lived
none
longer.
other
I
than
wanted
the
more from him, bro.
hand. We collected the hand and returned to repair the safe haven generator guided by Ollie. It was saved, and now it was time for Poppy's mission. Doey went out of the safe haven to distract the prototype, and we went down to the factory's foundation to place the explosives on a bunch of red smoke pipes that would burst when the dynamite was set off. However, after placing these on the way out, Doey panically confronted us as he
Doey
had
lost
seemingly
him.
lost the prototype and didn't know where he
Doey.
went. Although, unfortunately, it wouldn't take long for him to find out, as behind him, he saw that the safe haven, the place he had been protecting from the prototype for decades, had
while,
been
yeah.
invaded and exploded by 1006, killing
I can understand how they
we then
blamed me and
walked
Poppy.
back to Safe Haven to see Doey
They've been
grieving
protecting this
over
place for a
all of
while,
the
and it's been
children
fine
he
until we
tried
came
to
around.
save, now gone. This caused Doey to fully snap into his aggressive mode again, blaming us for causing all of this. From here, he would transform
Justice for
into a
Doey.
demonic salamander state, chasing us down the entire factory while
Well,
we
I
were
wasn't
eventually
thinking that,
left
but
with
now I
no
see it.
option but to kill the enraged experiment, freezing his body using the liquid nitrogen cans
Come on, we
left
had
down
other
here
options,
from the construction
right?
workers, and sawing down on the frozen parts to tear him
had
into
other
bits,
options than to
leading
kill
to
him.
a giant crusher room where Doey was frozen one more time and would be killed by the machine. But
Look
not
at that.
before
That's so
he snapped
sad.
back into himself and gave us one final apology for his outburst.
I'm sorry.
Uncompromising curiosity deserves uncompromising quality,
I know
crafted
you're
without
sorry.
compromise.
No matter what job you do,
I'm gonna start
your
crying,
workwear
chat.
has to do it too. Get
No,
the
I
most
won't.
from your garment.
He says I'm sorry twice. Yeah.
From here, we fall into a
He
vent
says it like
where
it was the
none
last
other
two
than
personalities.
Poppy
Now that I think about that, he says it one like I'm sorry, and then one just genuine I'm sorry. Like was that like Jack and what was it? Kevin was the emotional one, right? Matthew was the intelligent one. Might have been those last two.
Izzy
talking.
and Ollie were down there. They had all
Overpowering
survived the prototype's wrath
Kevin
and
Bacon
were
or
back
whatever,
together.
Barnes, Kevin
However,
Barnes.
while Poppy was talking to
Overcoming
Ollie,
his
his
anger.
tone suddenly changed.
Ollie,
Back actually. Oh, welcome back. I don't know when you sent that. Sorry.
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this
Mhm.
where you are, Poppy?
From childlike and friendly to evil and twisted. At some point, the Ollie Poppy knew was gone and was replaced by the prototype
that makes more sense
himself.
now. Why her, Poppy and Ollie had a connection because they knew each other before. okay, like they had
mimicking
the calls
Ollie's
before
voice.
when
And
she
while
was
listening
experimenting
in
on.
on everything we were doing throughout the factory, he revealed he intercepted all of the explosives we were trying to use to blow the place up and had strapped them to the ventilation area we were trapped in. However, first, he wanted Poppy again, telling her to come home back into the case he had put her in years ago, inciting panic in her once again, where despite being our friend, she ran off like she's done for years.
Like she's done for years. Exactly what I've been saying. But if we were to do that with the prototype, then we got to blow up the whole place, you know? Anyways, let's continue.
And leaving us and Kissy alone. The prototype
Kissy,
then
bro.
blew the vent up.
Oh.
Kissy would try to hold us up from the rubble, but her injured arm fell off.
Oh yeah, that's
we
her injured one. That's why it falls.
When getting up from the fall, though, in front of us, we saw there was none other than the Playtime.
This is where they made the poppy gel.
The place we used to work. From here, we began to
Oh
walk
yeah,
into
did we
the
work this far?
Area,
We were a
using the
biologist, huh?
Omni-hand. Inside,
it's cool we got to learn lore about
VHS
ourselves.
tape similar to the one found when
While
we first entered.
going around as
Upon
ourselves.
Playing, Leith Pierre
Imagine
was
getting info on
introduced,
yourself.
but this time
was like
he
real life,
sounded
while
much
going in
more
an
sinister.
abandoned factory.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at Playtime Co. If you're seeing this, you must be very, very lost.
Warning us
Evil
about
laughs.
the security systems once again, as outside of the lab, from the darkness, it's revealed that none other than Huggy Wuggy was waiting for us, who, hungrier for revenge than ever, attacks the glass of the
He's their
lab
security
doors
system
while
now.
more red smoke filled
They're bringing
up
him
the
back
area,
for chapter 5.
causing
That's
us
so
to
cool.
once again
He's gonna be a
slowly
roaming
pass
enemy,
out,
it looks like,
ending
in chapter
the
5.
Poppy Playtime timeline.
Well,
So that's all for the timeline. Again, this was just my opinion. I did have to make a lot of assumptions about unanswered questions like who the prototype was and what the red smoke was originally created for, along with having to shove certain
prototype
events
might not
that don't
be
have
Elliot
specific
Ludwig.
dates into random places to fit and build out the story. But if you guys enjoyed, please subscribe. This is by far the biggest video I've ever done. And if you want to see more like this, let me know in the comments below.
Sharpie W video from Sheep Rampage right there. We learned a bunch, chat. If you want to check out any other videos on his channel or the video for yourself, you can check out his channel in the description. It's in the description of the live stream and the video, so that'll be cool if you want to check that out. That was interesting. I learned a lot. I still have more questions. It actually kind of made me have more questions, but it also gave me more answers, so I'll take that. That's interesting. And yeah, I guess he should have stated that this isn't it for, like, it's it for now. Like, if some people don't know probably that that's the end of the game. That's not the end of the game yet. But we don't know for sure chapter 5 is. They haven't told us even with the chapter 5 news, but it really sounds like it is. We'll see. Maybe a 6th, but yeah, whatever. But this was a good stream, guys, and a good video. Yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys.